Hi. You know, in a previous chapter, you learned about the betrayal, how my wife had betrayed me, and how she had betrayed the whole family. And I realized that what I needed was objective intervention. And I had always believed that I would get that from law or from the law. But instead of objective intervention, I got something that I never even imagined it existed: feminazi intervention. So I'm going to read chapter 14, objective intervention, and you need a lawyer. No, a lawyer is the last thing you ever need. You need a lawyer. That is what society has trained you to believe. You need a lawyer. Interestingly, that's the world's biggest lie, which was brought to me by a man who immediately told me the world's second biggest lie. I shopped for my lawyer. The first person I called was a woman. I thought I'd be better represented by a woman because I thought a woman would prioritize the needs of our children. It was clear that she didn't want to represent a man. I called another woman. This one was enthusiastic about representing me, so I went to her office and she told me, "We'll nail that cunt to a cross." Are you kidding? That was not my goal. Next, I tried a man. This man was a really nice guy. His receptionist seemed to love him. He told me right from the start, "Mr. Satilli, I really don't care about you and your wife's squabbles. You have 7 children, and I'm going to represent their best interests." He said, "Before we talk, please read this brochure." It was about the best interest of children of divorce. Right on. I hired attorney Howard Pfeffer to make sure my divorce was handled correctly. The biggest lie: you need a lawyer. The second biggest lie: it's for the children. The story was simple in my case. There was no money. I said the quote, "There is no money," so many times that I became frustrated. I felt as though I should write it on a poster board and simply hold it up every time money was mentioned. The reason that we have this problem of failure to understand the simple fact that there was no money to fight over is because judges and lawyers can't conceive that having no money is even possible. You see, both judges and lawyers have plenty, and have had plenty for so long that when you tell them they don't, when you tell them that you don't, they simply can't believe it and proceed as if you do. They don't outright call you a liar. They just give you a wink and a nod and relax in the confidence that they will find your hidden money sooner or later. My divorce has dragged on for 15 years at the time of writing this book, 16 years now. So it is clear that lawyers, courts, and judges are patient in this regard. You would think that after more than a decade of poverty, they would back off and leave you alone. But with the Bradley Amendment, it is now actually illegal for them to do so. So there was no money. This did not stop my wife's attorney from demanding money. I imagine that my attorney, the best interest of the children guy, seemed to think, or at least took a position, that her demands were actually quite reasonable, or he would have fought. He didn't fight. Why? Because that fight would have taken a great deal of money. And guess what? Secretly, deep down, he knew that there was no money. He had to keep this realization a secret from the court, lest the judge and other attorneys think him insane. You see, judges and lawyers have tons of stuff. They have houses, vacation homes, extra cars, valuable cars, pleasure boats, motor homes, timeshares, pensions, IRAs, 401ks, stock portfolios, bond portfolios, bank accounts, gold, art collections, jewelry, inheritances, money from legal settlements, and bribe money. They can't imagine that you don't have at least half of this stuff. I had a mortgage, a home, 7 kids, a wife, and a job. That was it, my friends. My lawyer actually asked me, an auto mechanic with 7 kids, what my entertainment budget was. The question angers me to this day. To give you some insight into what a mechanic makes, here is an excerpt from an article from 2014. And bear in mind, my story is in 1998. So the numbers that you're here are numbers of pretty much today that still, even this article is still even relevant to my case even now. So here we go, the 5 most regrettable jobs, 2014. And I've redacted the contributor's name so as to not implicate him or make him responsible or whatever crazy legal problem might ensue. But the article is this. If you find yourself in a career path that you regret, you're not alone. Some jobs are especially likely to leave people feeling disappointed. A recent survey by PayScale found. We're sharing the top 5 along with what they typically pay. Mechanic. 43% of mechanics say they regret their job. Without a doubt, many people adore the profession, says training and development consultant Farrah Parker, but with an average yearly pay of $36,100, this is in 2014, not 98. Imagine what it was in 98. We're going to get there. Mechanics are required to endure long hours of physical and often dirty labor. Resources and tools for the job are very expensive, and training never ends, as mechanics are required to keep up with the latest automotive advancement. While it looks good to a teen who has been working on cars, there isn't much opportunity to go beyond the pay you have, and you are usually working in a cold, open space with pressure to work quickly, says Denise Kalm, chief innovator of Kalm Creative. It's a physically demanding job that, as you age, becomes more difficult while generally becoming not more financially rewarding. Now, that's the excerpt from the article. In the book is a copy of my Social Security records from my entire working life as seen by the courts and is signed off on by Stacy. You will probably see this more than once in the book. Okay? And here you see just what that article says. Look at some of these yearly earnings. Anyway, would it be possible for me to pay $600 a week in support? No, obviously not. In addition, I would have to pay all college costs for 7 kids to the age of 23, all medical costs for them and her, life insurance for both me and Stacy, all of her lawyer's whimsical charges, any mutual debt such as credit cards. I would have to pay my lawyer, and the cost of sustaining my own life. The list above is what Essex County Superior Court Judge James Convery thought was reasonable for me to pay. He ruled that I must do so or go to jail. He made that ruling 3 months before the divorce was finalized and sustained that ruling after the consequences of it forced me to remain in California. All I wanted was objective intervention. What I got was victimization by a brutal system. My lawyer acknowledged that what happened was not fair. In fact, his law partners said laughingly to me, "Hey, we heard you really got screwed in court." I asked my lawyer how this could be. It went pretty much like this. He said, "I can't believe it. I'll tell you this. I will never go against Lori Bernstein, Stacy's lawyer, again." I said back, "Clearly, this is unacceptable. What are you going to do?" He said to me, "Well, there's nothing you can do. When you don't fulfill your obligations, your wife and that lawyer of hers are going to put you in jail." I said, "Well, that's too stupid to be real. I'm not going to waltz into jail as if I were a criminal. I'm going to go visit my mother in California until somebody comes back from Fantasy Island and fixes this." He said, "Well, I don't recommend that you do that." I said, "I'm listening. What are my options?" He said, "I guess you don't have any." I said, "Wrong. I'll call you from California." Before we continue, allow me to elaborate on the consequences of jail. It's not my person actually sitting in jail that's the strategic part for Stacy. That part is simply irresponsibly cruel. First, remember, immediately after the divorce was ruled upon in court, Stacy proceeded to change my children's names. This proves that she extrinsically intended to extricate me from their lives permanently. My imposed jail history would have been a great way for her to stop me from visitation immediately, throughout the divorce ruling, and then after. Next, I was in financial services at Prudential. My repeated jail visits would have resulted in termination of my job, making it impossible for me to provide child support. In that position, I would fail in court to win any visitation time. I love the way they say that. If I was not actually terminated by my employer, the interruptions to my schedule would make it impossible for me to carry on my service-based business with any real hope of normal development, again, ruining my chances of showing financial success to the court, justifying myself as a financially responsible parent. Stacy never dreamed that I would go to California. I will never forget her delight when I told her I would not return to New Jersey until she removed the specter of jail from our proceedings. The visit to my mother was characterized as abandonment. Stacy always had jail as a backstop against my return, but was not forced to play the jail card. She did, however, make it abundantly clear to me that if I did return, she would employ it in a heartbeat. Sardonically, the funny part of the story is, in a phone contact I had with her years later, I reminded her of what I've written in the previous paragraphs. She told me, "Oh, I wasn't really going to do that. You should have communicated with me." The statement left me agog. What a two-bit lie. First of all, I am and was always the communicator. I begged Stacy for years to work towards solving our problems. She gave me the silent treatment every day of those years. The idea that I was not willing to communicate was so absurd that I knew that Stacy was suffering from parental alienation syndrome. This is a mental condition that I will elaborate on in an upcoming chapter. Second, Stacy was not calling the shots. She was incapable of doing what was being done to me. The people in charge of all this were feminazi lawyer Lori Bernstein and her conspirator, Judge James Convery. These two, a truly mean, family-destructive woman and a play-for-pay judge, were going to do me family law style, as they and teams like them have done to men, and even occasionally a woman, for the last 4 decades. Divorce court is overwhelmingly biased against men. Divorce court victimizes women. Divorce court destroys family with no regard for grandparents. Divorce court screws children out of one or both of their parents' normal relationship of love, their family's financial plans for their future, and damages them psychologically for life. Divorce court promotes animosity until families are fully drained financially into the pockets of lawyers and other court-sponsored lackeys such as minors' councils, rehab and anger management facilities, social workers, and government child abductors, psychological and forensic income evaluators, and good old-fashioned jails. Divorce court is just plain evil. A divorce court that I had no idea existed was unleashed upon me by Lori Bernstein for her own purposes. She was certainly not handsomely paid by Stacy. And then in parentheses, I have a note here that says, Bernstein, a Bar Association member, is rewarded through expansion of Title 4D money systems and processes. It's a whole nother incredible topic. Stacy facilitated Bernstein so that she could win an argument without doing the work. Her goal was achieved spectacularly well. To this day, Stacy does not face our conflict. She doesn't have to. She still has the court doing her dirty work for her. That was her deal with Bernstein. You can have this man to do with as you will. I will not interfere. Just insulate me from having to tell the truth of what I've done to him from my kids. It's a deal with the devil, folks. So that's it for chapter 14. I'll be back soon with chapter 15, which is an amazing story. Fraud upon the court. Frankly, I'm eager to do it. Thanks very much. Get a copy of Hotsy Totsy Feminazi, read it cover to cover, and pass it on to your friends and family. It's the straight story.